Hi guys, Razel with InspireFulWomen.com. I create exercise tutorials and workouts for women in their almost 40s and over 40s like myself. I found as I mature in life that my body is changing and my exercise has needed to change with it, both to help me get stronger as I get older and to protect myself from injury. So that's really what the purpose of the type of content I create is. If you like learning with me, you can find more at InspireFulWomen.com. Today we're going to do the prone hamstring curl. So prone, face down, something to do on the ground, which is always fun because it feels like it's easier. All right, for the prone banded hamstring curl, you're going to need a band. A yoga mat would be good, and a towel, but that's optional, and I'll show you that in a minute. We're going to mount the band to somewhere fairly low, maybe like 4 to 10 inches off the ground. I feel like for most of us at home, the easiest thing is going to be to do is to have a door anchor that are used for resistance bands. So, like my purple door? So what you're going to do is you'll put it on the hinge side through here. I'm going to put it pretty low. So then you pull it through. I'll have it just like about right here, and then close the door real good, because we're gonna be putting, we're gonna be using our legs to pull against it. Then you're going to loop a band through. Eventually you might be able to work up to a fairly strong sized band because the hamstrings are very strong muscles. Oh, that's what moved. There. But actually, I'm still working with this band and it's fine for me. I'm gonna demo this for you and then kind of more break it down on exactly what to do, just so you can kind of see what it is we're trying to accomplish. The idea is when you're laying down, you want the band to be fairly taut already before you've really started bending your knee. So sometimes it takes a little figuring out at first, but we're just gonna lay face down with the band in one foot. The towel is for your head so that you can put your hips under your pelvis to make sure that your pelvis is stabilized and not lifting during the movement. So I'm just gonna do it now for a sec. Okay, so that's the basic movement. What I wanted to point out was what your muscles are doing during it, because I think it's cool to know what's working. So your core and your back muscles are working to keep your pelvis stable and keep your hips from like rocking or lifting while you're doing the movement, which is really great. When you first start lifting your leg, your lower and middle hamstring muscle is going to contract and be working. And then as you reach full knee flexion or leg knee bending, then your upper hamstring and your glute is now going to get engaged to keep the hip from flexing. So that's kind of the muscles that are working there, and I think that's really cool, and you're really going to feel it. One quick tip I want to give you when you start this: if I'm not careful, I can kind of get like a hamstring cramp basically if I put too much tension on it before I'm warmed up enough. So when you first do it, to me, what I'm finding is the best way to warm up is just to be a little closer to the door so that there's not as much tension on the band, and just kind of do several reps on each side. Of course, like this. Just trying to talk to you. But just to make sure your hamstrings are warmed up, and then you can move yourself further out. So let's do it. So you kind of saw me get into position. Do whatever works for you. I do find with the shoe, it's good. That helps keep the band on your foot and not like rolling off. But the other thing you can do if you're having trouble is you can loop it around like that. Do you see that? So now it can't like come off. That's going to tighten the band a little bit, obviously, which actually might be a good thing depending on, maybe you're progressing. So those are two ways to keep it on your ankle. Let's see. So the other thing you can do is, you don't want to have the band like, do you see how, like if my foot's right in the middle of it, it'll probably come off. So I kind of have one side of it wrapped around my shoe, and then it stays on pretty well. Does that make sense? All right. So now, to get into position, you're just laying flat. Put your hands under your hip bones, and your neck you just want to be neutral. So that's why you're gonna use the towel to rest your neck on. Before you start the movement, you want to think about gently engaging your abdominal muscles, so that what you don't want to do is, and I'll show that more in the avoids. I'm not all relaxing here. Anyhow, what you don't want to do is let your spine here start doing a bunch of movement during it. This is supposed to be your glutes and your hamstrings and a little bit of glute. So just engage your abdominals, and you'll kind of know with your hands under your pelvis, that's going to kind of let you know that that's staying stationary. Then you basically just try to keep your glutes soft at the bottom of the movement so that they're not getting engaged till later. And by doing that, you're allowing the lower portion of your hamstrings to have more of a chance to be working first, before the upper hamstrings and glute kind of get more involved, okay? So try to keep them soft at the bottom, and think about contracting more from the bottom, like from the back of your knee upwards as you come up, okay? So let's try that. At the top, you can kind of squeeze, as long as you're not letting your lumbar back be the thing that's kind of doing that work. It should be your glutes doing that work. Your feet are about hip width apart as far as how far apart they are. We'll do a few more, okay? You're going to get a lot of hamstring work if you go slow on the eccentric part. This part here, the lowering. Eccentric just means the muscle lengthening under load with resistance. So that's really working the muscle there. Obviously, don't turn your head and talk to people while doing this movement like I'm doing. So again, feet hip width apart. You kind of start, you'll know with the tension, like as you get stronger, or like when I first started, it was like I kind of needed to start where there was more slack, because my muscle wasn't used to the pattern yet, and so I couldn't get all the way up. So you're gonna have to play with that a little bit, but the idea is you want to try to be able to get at least to 90 degrees. Anything past that is great, but does that look like 90 degrees? Yeah, but try to get to there. Try to be at a distance that allows you to get to 90 degrees and do that slow eccentric. And it's such a good, ladies, this is really difficult to demonstrate and talk at the same time. Yeah, so that's pretty much what you do. You do with one leg at a time, ideally, like I was doing. That's how you'll get the most hamstring and glute involvement. There's a couple options as well with your feet. You can do the movement with your foot kind of pointed outwards, and if you do that, it's going to work more of the inner hamstrings a little bit more, like more focused on that, like that. And then you can also point your toe inward towards the inward part of your body. And if you do it that way, it'll work more of your outer hamstring. Thanks for being with me today, guys. Once again, I'm Rizal at inspirefulwomen.com. I create exercise tutorials and workouts for women like myself in their over 40s and almost 40s. I have found in the last few years that I've had to change the way I exercise. First of all, I was really getting tired of like intense exercise and just all this jumping around. I just honestly didn't want to do it anymore. And I found that it's really not necessary. I feel better training the way I do now, which is a slower pace, using weights at home. And it's all I really needed to get stronger and to look great and to feel great. So if you're enjoying learning with me, you can find more workouts and tutorials at inspirefulwomen.com.